A young, solitary giant lived in a beautiful, spacious house. Unfortunately, his mother and father had disappeared when he was still a child. Vanished suddenly, perhaps captured and eaten by a hungry, predatory monster, never to return home again. Did he ask himself many questions? Without mirrors to admire himself, and no friends to compare with, he had lived alone for so long that he had forgotten his own shape and no longer knew what his body looked like, except that it was undoubtedly gigantic. He probably had eyes at the tip of his snout, or so he supposed. He couldn't even turn to look at himself. His structure prevented it. So he imagined he had a nebulous body mass, not having any way to know what he truly looked like. Despite all this, he was often optimistic and smiling. His father, before vanishing, used to tell him many wonderful stories every evening and spoke often of the sea and how marvelous it was. At the time of those stories, the giant was still very young and no longer remembered his father, whom he now pictured, like himself, as a cloud. He also had only a vague idea of the sea, imagining it as an enormous, indistinct blue mass. One day, he finally understood what he truly desired: to meet other living beings like himself, to discover his form and to know what the sea really was. And so, on a warm morning, he left his solitary life behind, stepped out of his house, and began his journey, chasing after hopes and dreams. After a few hours, he arrived in a valley where he met a strange red star-shaped creature.
Hello, my name is Giant. Tell me, Red Star, have you seen anyone like me around?
He asked, hoping to get some information.
My dear friend, it's a pleasure to see you. Many years ago, some of your kind passed through this valley. They told me they were heading south to reach their home,
replied the star, then added,
You must go to the end of the valley and enter the Black Cave. That's the right way. The exit lies exactly where the road to the south begins.
The giant thought the star was a very beautiful creature, with her striking red shape. He thanked her and headed toward the cave's entrance. The path was scattered with white bones, extremely clean, as if someone had thoroughly picked them clean. The remains completely covered the ground. He began to doubt. Why were all those bones there? Maybe they belonged to some ancient animal. But they seemed too clean. Some looked fresh, as if recently gnawed. He didn't like that road. It felt somehow sinister. He decided to turn back.
Dear friend, I must postpone my journey south. I just remembered I left my door open. I wouldn't want some ill-intentioned creature to enter and steal anything.
It was a pathetic lie, especially since in that world, most homes didn't even have doors, and upon further reflection, not even roofs. The star replied,
Giant, don't worry. I'll send my sister to close your door. Continue your journey in peace. We'll look after your home.
Still determined to change course, he responded with a more plausible excuse.
Thank you. I was very worried about my home, but I must take another route. The cave's entrance is far too narrow for me. I surely can't fit through there.
With that, he said goodbye to the star and returned the way he came, happy he had maintained good manners. Upon hearing his words, Red Star quickly signaled her hungry sisters hidden in the vegetation around the valley. Unfortunately, the plan to attack that massive creature near the cave's entrance and catch him by surprise for a meal had failed. A multitude of red predators emerged from their hiding spots and began the chase. This was supposed to be their breakfast, and they wouldn't let it escape. The giant saw dozens of stars pursuing him. He realized his doubts had been justified. He was at risk of being eaten. He didn't know how to move quickly. He had never been into sports. Also, when he moved, he didn't walk. He hopped. It was comical to see him fleeing, bouncing along, chased by a large group of red stars. As he escaped, he put more and more power into his jumps, which became increasingly higher, until, flailing every part of his massive body, he began to fly. He forgot his fear and smiled, happy to soar through the air. The stars were astonished. They couldn't believe their light receptors. That great creature was flying away, stealing their lunch.
Stop!
They shouted.
Come back! We must eat you! We've waited so long and been polite. Not even a nibble.
But the giant flew away from danger. How beautiful it was to see the world from above, with its valleys and plains. Without understanding why, he instinctively realized he was very good at flying, even though no one had ever taught him. The scenery changed as he moved, totally at random. Suddenly, something flying appeared in the distance. Actually, it wasn't so far. It only seemed that way because it was so tiny.
Good morning,
He said politely.
Hello.
Replied the tiny figure with a squeaky voice. He was puzzled by its form. He had never seen such a strange little being, with a tail curled upward and eyes on a long snout.
Pleased to meet you. My name is Giant. What's your name, little one?
I'm Little Horse. I love to travel and see the world.
It replied. Giant immediately asked,
Little Horse, do you enjoy flying far from the ground? Like we are now. I just learned how.
Wow, big creature. You're impressive, but what we're doing? Do you call this flying?
Giant ignored the remark and asked,
Say, little one. Have you seen other giant beings like me around? I'm always alone and terribly bored.
He got the information he was hoping for.
Dear friend, 2 days ago, to the west, I met many beings identical to you. They were singing happily while feasting on a colony of little critters your kind seems to love.
The giant couldn't believe his ears, or whatever he had in place of ears. After saying goodbye to Little Horse, he took off at full speed, heading west. Soaring and gliding on the wind currents, he flew, thinking of his kind whose form he still didn't know. He realized he could have asked Little Horse what he looked like, but it hadn't occurred to him. He also dreamed of finally seeing the sea, that immense thing he longed to see but had never known, though he never tired of imagining it. And so, amidst the blue, the giant wandered, following a path he didn't even know, leading to a distant, unknown place. After 2 days of travel, he began to see something. As he approached, those shapes took form. He saw many strange beings he had never seen before. Babies, mothers, and elders, so many of them. He spoke to an old one who looked wise.
Good day, sir. Pleased to meet you. I see you all know how to fly. I just learned. Can all of you do it? By the way, have you seen the sea or giants like me around?
Welcome. So nice to see you. Were you lost? Don't worry. You found a home now. We'll take care of you.
He immediately felt better, finally protected and safe. He asked again,
Have you ever seen someone who looks like me? What is the sea like?
The old one looked at him tenderly and answered,
You mischievous young one. You look exactly like me.
You're a whale.
You're not flying. You're swimming in the sea by all the sirens. The sea you long to see has always been around you.
His mind, struck by these revelations, was blank for a moment, but then doubts and memories materialized into immediate understanding. He was a whale, and the sea he had dreamed of had always surrounded him. If only he had looked more deeply within, he might have discovered it sooner.
Very often, the path to what we desire is hidden inside us. But out of fear, habit, or unconscious inability, we don't seek it in the corner of our heart where it lies.
That was the first thought of the young whale who had found himself. The blue whales roamed the oceans. Following great swarms of krill they fed on, they sang songs filled with love and glory, shaped by millions of years of evolution as they swam proudly and majestically. Life flowed gracefully and lightly for our young whale. He loved caring for the calves he led to pasture, teaching them to eat krill slowly so they could digest well. One day, by chance, he found himself near the house where he had lived with his mother and father, who had disappeared suddenly. Now he understood. They had surely been captured and killed by little monsters who lived above the sea's surface, sailing in murderous ships with sharp harpoons, hunting innocent prey. For years, before realizing he was a whale, he had lived at the ocean's bottom, not too deep for the light to reach, breathing thanks to oxygen bubbles produced by many kinds of algae. But now that he finally knew who he was and had learned to swim, he loved surfacing to dive among the waves, being careful, though, that those cursed predator ships weren't nearby. Seeing his old home again, after so long, filled him with a tender emotion born of a lost, melancholic time. The pain of losing his parents had long melted into 1,000 streams of faded suffering during the solitary years spent not knowing who he truly was. And now that he knew himself, he felt ready to welcome them again. From that day on, his father and mother returned in his dreams. At last, he could remember their faces, rekindling a spiritual bond of love that would never end. And so, accompanied by a tender, heartfelt memory, the rediscovered whale flew, swimming into his new life. With his little calves immersed in the sea,